Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Birthright podcast, episode 2. This is Taylor here, and I will be your soul sister on this journey into the real and raw conversations around everything related to the body and relationships and spirituality, and really the overall lived experience of being a woman in these modern times who's feeling called to remember the ancient ways. I like to say that I am in a period of remembering instead of becoming, because I really feel like I'm shedding away all of the things that have been laid on top of the purest form of my soul. And so this episode today is really an homage to remembering and part of my story around it. I titled this episode Beauty as Prayer. Beauty as Prayer, and I really believe that I'm on the path to living my life in that way. But it took me a while to get here. For a majority of my life, I used beauty as a source of power. And that's the story I'm going to share with you all today, which is a tender one. I got a little tendy heart around it because it's a topic that I don't hear about very often in the media. And it's something that I know is a deep rooted shared experience for so many women. I did a social media post on this topic last month and was so surprised at the amount of resonance that was felt with that. So I'm excited to take you all on this journey. Thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me. I invite you to just take a deep breath, settle in, grab your tea, grab your blanket, cozy up, whatever makes you feel good. This topic matters more than ever right now. We are inundated as a society with images of celebrities who have spent absurd amounts of money to reconstruct their face or to freeze them in time. And now we have the challenge of seeing AI images being generated, plus filters, and just not even growing up, but being alive in a time where we're seeing our faces more than ever before. Especially with front-facing cameras and social media and a lot of Zoom meetings, we are looking at ourselves more than we ever have. And this is a big deal because when we're seeing our faces, we're subconsciously comparing them to all of the other faces that we're seeing on screens. As a culture, I think that we've lost touch with what aging looks like real human aging. There's a whole industry around anti-aging, which I think is ridiculous. I also think pro-aging is ridiculous. I just think we're aging, we're getting older. And we have a lack of examples to look to when we see the faces of wise elders. We instead see faces that have been surgically modified in order to fit this mold of freezing you to look like you're 30 years old. It's like a very kind of confusing time. And this is really where my story begins, was back in my teenage years when I started working at a restaurant that only hired you if you looked good. So that was at least the first place where I can trace back to where I started associating beauty with real power, with money. I made a lot of money working on that job at 16. And while I was in that job, I started getting hair extensions, fake nails, fake tans, and I even wore a pair of shorts that had padding in the butt. So I looked like I had a bigger butt than I did. And all of this was evidence I was gathering up of like, yeah, the more that I play into this standard of what beauty is, the more money I make, the more powerful I am, the more freedom I have. Let's go. Let's do this. And that sent me on a really long path of starting to get Botox. I hated the lines in my forehead. You can see if you're watching the video, I have a lot of lines in my forehead. I hated them, despised them. So I started getting Botox at 23 and got breast implants at 25 and got my first lip filler done at 26. And throughout my 20s, that narrative was playing really strong. I made a lot of money. I had, from the surface, a very beautiful life where I had everything I could have ever wanted. Yet, when I really started to peel back the layers, there was an emptiness there. I didn't start feeling this emptiness until 2023, which I shared a little bit about in the first episode of really when my awakening started coming in. But it took me a while to pinpoint that this is what I was feeling. But what I was realizing was that chasing this eternal youth and beauty and really thinking that my worth in this world, my worth when I stood in the mirror and looked at myself in the morning, was based on an ever-changing body, that I was really playing a losing game. It was heavy coming to this realization, coming to the realization that I had been augmenting and just taking my body away from her natural state and using the outcome of that to gauge where I stood in the world. Who am I? I'm a beautiful girl. I'll be taken care of. And it wasn't until late 2023 I had some Botox done and I got some pretty significant bruising and headaches after, which I had before, but this was the first time I was really calculating, oh, I'm injecting my body with neurotoxins. Maybe I should look at this a little bit deeper. So I decided in 2024 I was going to do an experiment and stop getting Botox. And I tell you what, the day that I saw these wrinkles on my forehead and between my eyes, which are I've learned are called the 11 lines, I lost it. I cried. I thought I looked like I had aged 10 years. I was so used to looking at myself in one singular expression, especially on these front-facing cameras, because I was on social media a lot. It really hit me like a ton of bricks that this is no way to live my life. I have been making the decision to have these things done from a place of scarcity and believing that if I didn't do them, that my worth would be less in the world. That was a big wake-up call for me. And so throughout 2024, I just continued to wean myself off of any fillers and Botox and really clean up my diet and made the decision to have the surgery in 2025 to remove my breast implants and to experience my body in her fullest natural beauty. But that didn't come without a price. I really hit a rock bottom in the middle of all of that. There was a lot of grief. There was a lot of sadness. There was a reminiscing of a life that once was, that was no longer going to be the same ever again, which sometimes I still feel grief around. I have not figured all of this out. Because sometimes I find myself looking at old photos of myself and being like, damn, I looked really good. And forgetting that these lines, that my natural body, my natural self, in a healthy state, feeling really, really good, feeling really happy and fulfilled beyond what the outside looks like, that is truly priceless. So I had to ask myself, who am I if I'm not performing this whole beauty thing? And once I let all of that go, my life started turning into this rich texture, like a level of depth that I had not experienced before, and I continue to be amazed by every day. It's almost like getting unplugged from the matrix whenever you decide to go on this journey of coming back to the natural self and finding mentors who are older than you, who actually look older than you. Because aging is a beautiful thing. And you can do it in a way that makes you feel good, in my opinion, without adding all of these toxins and chemicals and foreign objects and surgeries and things to your body. Now, my proposition is that if you still choose to do those things, you're choosing to do it from a place of sovereignty and knowing deep within that that's what you really want. Asking your body, do you want this? Is this what you need? And not letting overculture and society tell you that that's what you need. That's my biggest invitation to anyone who is currently getting or considering getting any cosmetic enhancements and treatments. Because to me, aging, it can be done radiantly. It can be done through shining your heart's light like a spotlight. When you love yourself beyond what you see in the mirror. And even looking in the mirror every day and telling yourself everything that you love. That really enhances that connection between the inner heart and the outer body. I can't tell you guys how many times I woke up in the morning and looked in the mirror and scrutinized and nitpicked every single thing I could about my body, about this body that is the only connection that I have between spirit and earth. It's the only thing that keeps me here, living this 3D life, which I'm a big fan of. What does the body want and what does she need, and how much can I tell her I love her? How many parts of my body can I actually express gratitude for on a daily basis? Even the parts that I might not ever think about. Whenever you intentionally work to build that relationship with your inner self, I promise you the outward appearance follows. I can't tell you how many women I've been around recently because I love spending time around older women. I just met a woman this past weekend at a wedding, and she was probably in her late 70s, maybe early 80s, and her radiance, I could feel it from across the room. I was instantly like, I want to go talk to her. I bet she's lived a really interesting life. And sure enough, it was easier for her to tell me what countries she had not been to than the ones that she had. She had traveled the world, lived a beautifully rich and fulfilling life. And she looked her age, but she looked radiant because it shined from within her. And I'm still unlearning this stuff. It doesn't happen overnight because every day we're getting inundated with more and more and more images and products on how to fix things. But sister, you don't need to be fixed. You just need to unlearn some of this bullshit that we have been taught since we were young girls. And we need to be the stewards carrying the torch for these younger generations of women who are growing up constantly in comparison with unrealistic perfection standards that are portrayed on the screens. I feel really, really deeply about this because I want to have a daughter one day, and I want my daughter to grow up believing in her inner beauty, and that is so much more powerful than what an external facade. Not even a facade, though. Let me take that back because, again, this is my body. I love her. It's not a facade. I'm born with this body and I'm grateful for it. We do not get to choose our bodies. We don't get to choose our appearance. This is out of our control. And I think the more that we try to control it, we're just setting our future generations down a really dangerous path. I invite you to reflect on your relationship with beauty, similar to the way that I did. And if you resonate with my story of beauty as power and using beauty to get what you want and to get ahead in life, to make money, that's what I did. And then to unwind it. To unwind and unlearn all of that, I just want you to know I'm here for you. I felt very alone in the journey that I went on, and it's only now that I'm starting to find more elders and more resources that I can have these conversations with, and I can learn from those who have been through it and those who have never gone through putting a needle in themselves voluntarily, because I think that's quite interesting too, to compare the difference. I invite you to reflect on your relationship with beauty. And I invite you to invite beauty into your life as a form of prayer. What beauty means to me now, outside of injecting and cutting and slicing and opening myself up, which honestly I never want to do again. Even though I still look at these lines and I'm like, why do there have to be so many of you? And I'm always squinting like this, always. I'm really trying to retrain my facial muscles. But what beauty means to me now is, in terms of looking at it as a form of prayer, is I wear things that make me feel beautiful. I think about my habits as a consumer through the lens of the beauty way. Does this item bring me joy? Was it made sustainably? Were the employees who made it, are they being treated properly? When I think about any kind of products that I put on my beloved body, I look at the ingredients. I do my research. I find the brands that have a focus on sustainability, on using natural, organic ingredients, instead of just buying what's convenient. You know, I think part of this culture we live in is this quick, fast, fix it now convenience. Everything is at my fingertips. 1-day shipping, same day shipping. And sometimes we forget about the choice that we have to make and the importance of our choice. Each dollar we spend is a vote that we're casting towards the future that we want. Or maybe not even that we want, but the future that's going to be what it is for ourselves and for our children and for our future generations. One of my mentors, Becca Piastrelli, she has an amazing podcast called Belonging. She talks about how to be a good ancestor. And I love that phrase because I feel like this whole journey of beauty and choosing this path and looking at beauty in our everyday lives, like bringing more natural light and more plants in, and creating beautiful spaces and beautiful altars and adorning our bodies in a way that shows that we care and taking care of ourselves and not obsessing on what we don't have or what we're lacking. That, to me, is being a good ancestor. It's going to be setting a really great example for the younger women that come into my life. And it feels like a really, really, really important message to me. So for me, it's been a journey of performance to presence, power to prayer, and loving myself more and more along the way, which in turn allows me to cultivate a greater depth in my relationships, a greater depth in connection to the things that surround me, which I'm so grateful for, a greater depth and connection to the land that I live on and to the places that I travel, to the people that I meet, when I can drop the mask. I wore that mask for so many years, and damn, it feels good to take it off. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is a topic, again, I am so passionate about, and am sure I will keep sharing on. Really enjoyed this little chat today, and I hope you did too. And one quick announcement, actually a couple announcements. I am hosting a women's retreat in June of this year, 2026, June 4th through the 7th at Drala Mountain Center in Red Feather Lakes, Colorado. This is the second retreat that my dear, dear friend Jacqueline Miller and I are hosting together, called the Way Back Home Women's Retreat. So if conversations like this, overall wellness, mindfulness, nature, nourishment, sisterhood, connection, if those things are lighting you up or spark even a little flame of curiosity, which I'm sure they do if you're here, then you are personally invited to join us in Colorado this June. We're going to have 3 days of just beautiful workshops, activity, connection, and nature time, and I cannot wait. We just launched our website, and a couple spots have already been filling up, so check it out. I'll link it in the show notes. And my other invitation to you is to join my free online women's community called Birthright. Same name as the podcast. And this is really the repository for journal prompts, reflections, guided exercises, webinar recordings, just a place where the community is truly building and you can engage in conversations. I host a monthly women's circle on there, and it's all free. So definitely check that out. And I also have an email newsletter. I call it my every so often newsletter. I write only when I'm feeling inspired to, and never sending any spam to your inbox. That link will be in the show notes as well if you want to stay connected in that way. To my sisters, to my friends, just want to say thank you again. And I can't wait to join you next week.